Hey everybody, here we are with another video review, this time of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. So, despite a critical mauling back in 2018, Venom, against all odds, was a box office juggernaut, grossing over $800 million worldwide. Pretty impressive for a movie that everybody was convinced was going to flop. It helped kick off Sony's Spider-Man universe, which has grown to include the upcoming Morbius starring Jared Leto, as well as the planned Kraven film, which is going to star Aaron Taylor Johnson. A sequel to Venom was always a given, with star Tom Hardy seeming to be unusually committed to the franchise. Indeed, him and his creative partner Kelly Marcel share a story by credit here, while she penned the screenplay solo. They both also have producing credits. Now, with Andy Serkis, that's right, Gollum himself, as the new director, how does Venom Let There Be Carnage measure up? Basically, if you like the first film, I'm pretty sure you'll like this one too. Now, despite Serkis being involved, I'm not so sure the franchise has made a huge leap in terms of quality, although, of course, there's still loads of fun to be had, although then again, I found the first movie pretty fun. Once again, the film's greatest strength is its star, Tom Hardy, who seems to be having a blast playing the put-upon journalist Eddie Brock while also voicing his symbiote frenemy, Venom. This picks up shortly after the first film, with Eddie still under suspicion for all the chaos of the original film. Luckily, Venom has agreed to subsist on a diet of chocolate and live chickens for the time being, so no brains. And the two see their fortunes turn around when Eddie scores an interview with a death row inmate named Cletus Cassidy. However, Cletus, who's played by Woody Harrelson, soon finds himself infected by a symbiote of his own and becomes the evil Carnage. Cue some flashback memories of the Sega Genesis game Maximum Carnage that I loved as a kid. Now, Venom Let There Be Carnage doubles down on the buddy aspect of the first movie by focusing on Eddie and Venom's relationship. Venom seems mostly happy with the arrangement, but Eddie is upset, especially now with his ex, Michelle Williams' Anne, engaged to Reed Scott's Dr. Dan. It leads to a big blowout fight and a brief breakup, which allows Hardy as Venom to have some fun as the symbiote goes clubbing. That's right, there's a clubbing scene, which is actually pretty good, and he tries to find a new host, which is easier said than done. Serkis has doubled down on the most anarchic elements of the first movie, so there's lots of craziness in this one, a whole bunch of it, and he also gave this a really fast-paced vibe that will please some, but also put off others. The 90-minute running time is in fact true. The movie only lasts about 90 minutes, and I'll say this, it never drags, not for a second. It has a palpable sense of forward momentum throughout, but this comes at the cost of character and plot. Michelle Williams has comparatively little to do compared to how fun her role kind of was the last time, whereas the movie hints at a history between Brock and Cletus that really had me scratching my head, because I don't remember there being much about those two in the first movie, with just Woody Harrelson having a brief cameo at the end, and it makes me think that huge chunks of the film were cut out. A brief prelude sets up the young Cletus and his love interest Naomi Harris's Shriek in a really weird scene because Harrelson and Harris are both doing the voices of the younger actors that are playing them, which is really weird. And there had to be some history with Brock from when they were kids that didn't make it into the movie. It's really off-putting, actually. The first half hour of the movie borders on almost being bad, as everything is so fast and rushed that you wish that all involved would just settle down and take a beat to expand on the story and give us something to invest in, some stakes. The biggest problem is Carnage as a villain, who really gets short-shifted. He's, of course, one of the most famous comic book villains of all time, I guess, in some ways, well, at least as far as the Spider-Man universe goes, but we really don't get much out of him in Carnage mode, and the final battle royale feels rushed, as if we were racing towards an ending. This is kind of disappointing, as everyone no doubt hoped Serkis would up the action quotient, but it still feels like Sony's opting to keep the franchise relatively low budget, at least as far as superhero movies go. It feels almost like a 90s New Line genre flick at times, and the special effects, I have to admit, are really good, and I'm sure the movie wasn't cheap, but it's not quite an A-level superhero movie on the level of something like Marvel or even DC. Although that said, there's a post-credit screen that you better stick around for that hints at big things to come, although how this is going to pan out remains to be seen. All that said, Venom Let There Be Carnage is still a lot of fun. Marcel and Hardy really can't go wrong when emphasizing the Venom and Eddie aspect. Hardy again seems all in, playing kind of this Marlon Brando-esque journalist in Brock. And the extremely likable Venom comes off well here, despite all the chomping, of course. Harrelson riffs on his natural-born killer's role as the love-struck serial killer, while Naomi Harris camps it up as his lover, the ear-splitting, oh that's right, Shriek. Noted character actor Stephen Graham pops up as a cop who has a history with both Brock and Shriek, and he's memorable in what's essentially a throwaway role. I also like that Marcel and Hardy seem to have some real sympathy for the Baxter in the Eddie and Anne love triangle, Dr. Dan, played again by Reed Scott, who they've always gone through great pains to make likable. Usually those guys are portrayed as jerks. He's kind of like in the Bradley Cooper role before Bradley Cooper became a leading man, from Failure to Launch and Wedding Crashers and all the other movies where he was the guy that never got the girl. But, in these movies, they make Reed Scott's Dr. Dan seem like a pretty nice guy that Eddie and, well, even Venom can't help but at least like. Marco Beltrami takes over the scoring duties from Ludwig Göransson and delivers an energetic score, but for me the most memorable aspect of the film is the photography, with Serkis enlisting Tarantino's DP, Robert Richardson, to contribute some striking vehicles in the 1:8:5:1 aspect ratio, which is pretty rare for a superhero film, although it seems to be picking up a little bit of popularity these days after the Suicide Squad, because the fact is that aspect ratio looks really good on an IMAX screen. Overall, I had a lot of fun with this Venom sequel. At this point, I feel like these are kind of B-level superhero movies despite all their flaws, but for their own modest ambitions, which seem to be to deliver energetic 90-minute romps, they're pretty successful. And I mean, hey, not everything has to be the Avengers, so I give Venom a relatively successful 6 on 10. I would have liked a little bit of story and a little bit of character, but I still had a good time.
Eddie, we should be out there snacking on bad guys. I am a predator. I need to be free.
You have got to get control of your aggression, or you will get hauled off into Area 51. You live in my body. You live by my rules.
I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. Please let me fix it so I can play it again. You are a loser.
Eddie Brock, I want to give you my story. People love serial killers.
Please, why me?
What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine. I have tasted blood before, and that is not it. All I ever wanted in this world is carnage. I'm a crazy man. Are you a vengeful one?
Oh, shit!
Where you going?
That is a red one!
You need to come out right now.
I will let you eat everybody!
Promise!
I promise!
Oh, yeah!
Eddie, you feel like home to me. Like family.
Oh, wow.
You could just say I'm happy for you.
That was going to be us!
I am happy for you.
No!
God, I'm so sorry.
Not sorry!
This dude needs some serious couples counseling.
Hi there, I'm Andy Serkis, director of Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and I am so excited to share with you an exclusive look on the Apple TV app. Enjoy. 3, 2, 1, action! I've been making this directing journey for a decade. Cut! Right. To enter into this level of fan-based, really adored franchise world, it's a big responsibility.
Welcome back, Eddie Brock. I miss you so much.
It's very much felt It was in my wheelhouse. Creating characters using CG is obviously something that I've been involved with for the last 2 decades now.
I've been doing this show my whole life. I've been doing this show my whole life.
I've spent a considerable amount of my life playing a character with 2 sides to its personality, and there's common ground there.
We had a deal.
What's gonna happen?
You gonna stop protecting me?
I am happy to eat, Mrs. Chen.
No, you cannot eat, Mrs. Chen.
What?
Nothing?
The digital characters have got to seriously act. They've got to be totally believable. I wanted to find a physical vocabulary for Carnage that was entirely different to Venom. Everything was always underpinned by reality and a truth. I think it's the perfect movie in a way because it's very celebratory of what cinema can do.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
Sony's Morbius has been highly anticipated by fans, but also often delayed due to COVID-19. So, the film is finally coming out. How does it hold up in the new Sony Spider-Man universe? Well, in it, Jared Leto plays Dr. Michael Morbius, who seeks to cure his rare blood disease by injecting himself with the DNA of vampire bats. The plan works, but it also turns him into a blood-drinking superhuman. He's able to control his bloodlust, but the same cannot be said for his similarly afflicted best friend, Milo, played by Matt Smith, who uses his powers for evil. Now, you've got to hand it to Sony. Their extended Spider-Verse, or as they prefer to call it, Sony's Spider-Man universe, has worked a lot better than anyone really thought it would. Venom and its sequel were able to overcome some pretty terrible reviews to become box office juggernauts, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has actually become kind of a classic. Now, with Spider-Man No Way Home opening the door to allow the extended Spidey universe to mingle with the legit MCU franchise led by Tom Holland, Morbius could indeed become part of the MCU, although it seems kind of unlikely at this point. Morbius was shot before No Way Home, but there are enough hints dropped here that clearly Sony is intending to do a lot more with the character in their extended Spider universe, meaning he's probably going to go head to head with Spider-Man, although I would imagine it probably won't be Tom Holland's Spider-Man. More than likely, if they do an Amazing Spider-Man 3, he would go up against Andrew Garfield, or possibly even Tobey Maguire, or maybe even both. Now, Morbius is kind of similar to the Venom films. It's a lot more modest in scale than anything in the MCU. This is light, fast-paced superhero action. It runs a lean 100 minutes. Probably cost about a third or maybe even a fourth of what Spider-Man No Way Home did, so don't go in expecting a huge scaled superhero epic. You'll be disappointed if that's what you want. However, if you don't mind a smaller scaled addition to the franchise, you'll find that Morbius actually works relatively well as decent entertainment. Jared Leto makes for a surprisingly likable Michael Morbius. It's rare to see him in more heroic parts, with him often playing villains these days, but he's admirably straightforward, maybe even low-key as the heroic Morbius pre-transformation. Morbius presented as a kindly doctor who's eager to better mankind, although he knows he's fighting against the ticking clock, with his disease on the verge of ending his life prematurely. He also bristles against his physical limitations, explaining his relationship with Adria Arona's Martine. She's a medical associate of his who obviously carries a big torch, but he's unwilling to go there with her because he figures he'll soon be dead. His only real relationship is with Matt Smith's Milo, a similarly afflicted billionaire who bankrolls his work, while a wildly underutilized Jared Harris plays their father figure, a doctor who also happens to be Milo's full-time caregiver. The relationship between Morbius and Milo grounds the film somewhat, making the latter's eventual transformation into a villain carry a bit more pathos than you'd expect. As you see, Morbius is forced to go up against his own best friend, the only real friend that he has. Once Morbius becomes strong, Leto gets the display of physicality we haven't really seen in a lot of his more recent roles, with him impossibly chiseled, while he also gets to mix it up in a few quick fight scenes. The transformation into the vampire side of Morbius is done through CGI, with the vampire aspect of him kind of peeking out anytime he starts to hunger for human blood. Leto is a divisive figure, but I think he's going to win over a lot of people here. And also, I find that Morbius, despite being kind of a vampire movie, has a lot more in common with something like the Wolfman, in that he has this transformation that he undergoes that he can't control. You see, Dracula is always Dracula, but the Wolfman sometimes is just a nice guy who happens to become a wolf that can't control himself, and Morbius, when he's in his vampire state, finds it difficult to control himself. Meanwhile, Matt Smith seems to be having the time of his life as the scenery-chewing bad guy, going purposely over the top as Milo begins to relish his new powers. He goes, of course, to a bar to pick up chicks, because that's always what they do in these movies, right? Director Daniel Espinosa similarly has fun with comic book origins, with the cinematography giving this a bright, colorful look that's a far cry from the more noirish approach of something like The Batman. Espinosa also has fun with the horror aspects of the plot, even using an iris out at one point, and he stages one really cool hospital attack sequence in a way that seems to be paying homage to An American Werewolf in London. It's not particularly scary and it's all very PG-13, but it has a bit of style. However, Morbius does have a few issues. Notably, both Jared Harris and Adria Arjona are wildly underused. Both disappear from large stretches of the film and could have used a lot more screen time. Harris in particular is such a great actor. Why is he given such a nothing role? I really expected him to emerge as like a villain or something, but he does pretty much nothing here. Also, a bickering cop pair played by Tyrese and Al Madrigal add nothing to the plot except for a little tacked-on comic relief. Why bring Tyrese into a superhero movie if he's not going to get any action? I don't understand it. I mean, it's Tyrese. Morbius also rushes towards its climax similar to the last Venom film, as if they ran out of money and had to wrap things up quickly. I do wish Sony had pumped up the budget a little bit more to give the character a bigger launch, but then again, keeping it modest means it doesn't have to open to the Batman numbers to make it a success and continue the franchise. And sure enough, if you stay through the credits, there are a lot of hints that Sony is planning on developing Morbius a lot more. Whether or not it's going to be a Morbius 2 or an Amazing Spider-Man 3 or something else remains to be seen. In the end, Morbius is a decent enough start for the latest addition to the Sony Spider-Man universe. While I doubt fans will be clamoring to have him join the MCU right away, it would definitely be cool to see him show up in perhaps another Spider-Man spin-off, especially if Sony ever manages to finally entice Andrew Garfield to reprise the character in a legit Amazing Spider-Man 3. Oh, if only. Time will tell. Until then, I give this a not bad 6 out of 10.
Michael, what have you done?
I was trying to help people. But the cure, it's a curse.
Michael.
I have powers that can only be described as superhuman. But there's a cost. Now, I face a choice. To hunt and consume blood. Or die.
We all have monsters within us. It's up to us to control it.
What if I can't?
Michael Morbius. You've been given a gift.
Not exactly.
Time to let go of what you used to be. Discover who you're meant to be.
All our lives we've lived with death. Why shouldn't they know what it feels like for a change?
Just accept who you are. The bad guy.
Morbius.
Holy water? Really?
Yeah. You ever see Lost Boys?
Story of my life.
A new Marvel Legend arrives exclusively in movie theaters April 1st.
Ladies and gentlemen, this week we've got a brand new Marvel movie coming to theaters. Isn't that exciting? Man, I can't wait to see what the MCU has cooked up for us this time. Oh, wait, it's not Marvel. It's Marvel by way of Sony. Oh, okay, well, I guess that can still be good, right? Okay, so to be fair, not every Marvel by way of Sony movie has been bad. For my money, they're behind the 2 greatest Spider-Man films ever made, with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse being absolute masterpieces. And the Venom movies, while they were basically elevated B movies, were a decent amount of fun thanks to Tom Hardy's merciless scenery chewing. And, I mean, the grosses for those films have been astronomical. So clearly there is an audience out there for them.
We are Venom.
But Morbius. Of course, one of the reasons people aren't all that hyped about Madam Web is the fact that the character, let's just say she's not a household name. For those who aren't in the loop, in the comic, Madam Web is a paralyzed, blind clairvoyant, which is distinctly not what Dakota Johnson is playing here. In fact, she's already appeared in A Matter of Speaking in Across the Spider-Verse as a guidance counselor voiced by Rachel Dratch.
And what are you doing later?
Oh, sorry, I'm kind of seeing anybody else.
There. Oh, Brouch.
So it seems Sony's taken a rather, shall we say, loose approach to adapting the character to the big screen, which is fine. I think the reason people may have been down on it is the meme-worthy trailer. Which, yes, okay, so that became a thing. Fair enough.
He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died.
The posters also looked whipped together and certainly didn't help. With everyone assuming this would, well, just be another B superhero movie. So, what's the verdict? Madam Web is, unfortunately, something of a mess. I don't know exactly what happened, but the 4 credited writers, who include director S.J. Clarkson, aren't able to make a compelling addition to the Spider-Verse. Like so many films of its ilk, it teases the movie fans actually want to see, which is a full-on Spider-Woman team-up film, which is something we seem to be promised in the trailer. However, this is a prequel establishing how Cassie Webb meets the 3 girls who later become costume superheroes. However, here, they're teens being hunted by Tahar Rahim's Ezekiel Sims, who has powers similar to Spider-Man, but, you know, he's evil. We learn in the beginning, which boasts a cameo by Carrie Bichet of my beloved *Halt and Catch Fire* as Cassie's mother, that, well, Cassie's mom was a spider researcher in the Amazon who was betrayed by her assistant Sims. He leaves her to die but acquires certain powers, but they come with a curse. He's clairvoyant, but he can see his death at the hands of 3 costumed heroines, who here are played by Celeste O'Connor, Isabella Merced, and, hilariously, Sydney Sweeney, who wears thick sweaters and glasses in an effort to fool us into thinking, well, she's only 16. Given how much of a star she's become, thanks to Euphoria, where she was playing a teen like 3 or 4 years ago, and Anyone But You, audiences may find her playing such a young character unintentionally hilarious. But that's not the only goofy part of this movie. It has to be said that some of the dialogue here is rough. It's jam-packed with so much exposition and so many references to other Spider-Man characters that it becomes so cheesy. Adam Scott here plays a guy whose identity I'm not going to spoil here, that turns out to be a major character in the Spider-Man universe, so his full name is awkwardly said out loud a few times, just in case we don't get the many, many hits being dropped. I suppose for the benefit of those whose attention might waver, that might help. Fair enough, because that happened to me more than a few times here, meaning my attention did waver from time to time. In the lead, Dakota Johnson does all she can. She gives Cassie some attitude and is entertaining until the abysmal epilogue, where her performance becomes quite campy, which does not bode well for this hoped-for franchise. She's being set up as kind of the Professor X of the Spider-Verse, but I'm not sure that role will fit her particularly well. Merced, O'Connor, and Sweeney bring the requisite spunk to their roles and may well be excellent choices for a future team-up movie, hopefully allowing them to play characters that are closer to their own age, because they do not look like 15 or 16-year-olds like they're being kind of set up as. Of everyone, the only person I think, though, who comes off really, really poorly in the cast is Tahar Rahim. Now, he's an excellent actor, having delivered a stunning performance in the film Prophet, which is well worth checking out, but something is very off with his performance here, making it seem like a lot of his dialogue was changed in post-production looping. In fact, you don't even see him mouth a lot of really kind of important exposition sequences. Something is going on here, and it's very noticeable. It makes him come off as a bland villain, saddled with terrible exposition that seems like it was added after the fact. Indeed, it's really the writing that dooms this smaller-scaled film. Early on, Cassie is established as being on the run from the cops, but, she can just jet off to Peru without worrying about being caught. The movie is set in 2003, so it can justify the lack of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, allowing them to pepper the film with needle drops that mostly date back years before the film takes place. The only exception is in an action scene set to Britney Spears' Toxic, because, hey, it's set in the early aughts. You gotta have Britney, right? Director S.J. Clarkson is noted for her excellent TV work, which includes the great Netflix Marvel show Jessica Jones. Still, the style she brought to that is pretty absent here, with some strange choices, including distracting use of shaky cam that comes in during some of the dialogue scenes early on. Perhaps it's fitting as it takes place in 2003, an era where shaky cam was just in every movie. But it seems kind of bizarre now. Given the modest budget, there's also very little in the way of action until the finale, which I guess is supposed to set up further adventures for the cast. But I don't know. I really have my doubts anyone's gonna walk out of Madame Web thinking that, oh, this is gonna be a franchise. In the end, Madame Web could have been a decent little B-side of a superhero film, kind of like the Venom movies. But terrible cornball dialogue and a lackluster pace doom it early on. I give this a pretty bad 5 out of 10. I was very bored from the time it started till the time it ended. It wasn't even so bad it was good. It was just kind of bad. It's really only for superhero movie completists. To note, the version of the movie I saw had no post-credits scene, so when the credits roll, you're free to go.
He's trying to change what happens. Get down!